Welcome to another episode of the Hidden Potential Podcast. I'm your host, Homer Hargrove, and today we're going to be talking about how to get from an idea into action and within the process, tackling those big dreams that feel intimidating to you. And I want you to consider this kind of question. It's something that every creative thinker, visionary leader eventually runs into, and that is, what do you do when the idea in your heart feels bigger than your current capacity? And maybe it's a business, a book, a conference, a program, a ministry, maybe it's even a relationship. And you know that you have this desire. Maybe it even feels like spiritual. Maybe it even feels like you have this desire by God, and you just simply know that it matters. But when you look at your resources or your schedule, or maybe you're just inadequacies, your insecurities, it feels too big for you. And today I want to talk to those people, the people carrying big ideas that feel intimidating. And I want to help you learn how to manage your expectations, navigate through your insecurities, and move from inspiration to action with practical steps. And we're going to talk about a method that has helped me stay grounded. And it's going to be this idea of working backward from your goal, this clarity, and then building forward through the details. So as we get started, I want us to understand that I'll just speak for I feel like our culture often has this weird dynamic, because we have this dynamic to where we as an American people, we often want to support other people in their ideas. We want to cheer on the underdog, but then we also have this almost this what's the right word? From early development, this tampering of our expectations. It's from the moment that you start growing whether it's from childhood to teenager, or teenager to adulthood. It seems like we have these moments where we have this inspiration. We're like, I want to do this. And there's typically some well-rounded adults, maybe good intending adults, that are like, yeah, but that might not really be a possibility for you. And given we have some imaginative ideas, but just consider the kid that said, I want to be an astronaut. And how many kids have said that? And how many adults around them probably said, yeah, well, it's actually really difficult to do that. Maybe you should be a teacher. It's we try to lower those expectations in order to not disappoint the next generation, right? And we have kind of grew into that. And it's this kind of culture where the safest thing for us to do is to just climb the corporate ladder. And we've been conditioned to just do the standard kind of role and work our way one little tiny step at a time. And don't get me wrong, there's great perks to that, there's safety to that, but even within the corporate ladder, there's the people that often excel are the people who were inspired enough to take a risk in trying something that felt like a big idea. And so this constant belittling of our expectations, I think that we need to grasp that it's kind of been conditioned to us. And I'm going on a little rant here, but even for me, I remember in high school, I took this business and careers elective class, and the whole class is supposed to be about entrepreneurship. It was supposed to be about the idea of learning business strategy, starting your own business. And even within the class, it felt like there was this consistent theme of trying to discourage the students from actually starting their own business. It's we're constantly reminded that just keep in mind that 80% of businesses fail, or keep in mind that you're not going to see any profits until at least several years. And this is a really big, you need to really make sure it's something you want to do, because it's most likely, it's this constant projection that what you want to do isn't going to work. And it's really ingrained in our public school system, in our society, to where we have to, again, tamper our ideas and be realistic and don't overreach. And I want us to just understand that this is a learned behavior from our society. And so don't beat yourself up just because you feel intimidated, because it's something that I think all of us feel a general sense of intimidation to. But the people that became the astronauts are the ones that didn't care about that tampering. They're like, I'm going to do it no matter what. The people that really excel are the ones who are willing to just run at their big idea or what inspired them. So Let's talk about when the vision feels too big. You get a glimpse of what could be. You have this moment where a vision stirs something within you. It stirs your spirit and maybe even keeps you up at night. You're thinking about it over and over, and you feel like this beckoning to this idea. And you feel inspired, you feel called, but then that doubt kicks in. And you start asking questions like, who am I to do this? Who am I to ask her? Where would I even start? What would I even say? What if I fail? What if they reject me? Or worse, what if no one cares about this idea? What if it's just stupid? Maybe I'm just stupid. And now that beautiful dream that started to feel so heavy is now this kicked down, beaten. It got jumped by all these doubts. And it's just been kicked while it was down. Not because it was wrong, but because you haven't gotten the clarity of how it would work. You haven't broken it down, and so it just got beat down instead. And so vision is what initially inspires us, but strategy is what will sustain that vision. You start playing with the possibilities of how it actually might work. And if you don't learn to move from that vision to strategy, or that inspiration to action, that idea that was meant to build you will end up just burying you. And you'll bury that vision, you'll bury that idea, and you'll go through your life wondering, what if I actually tried it? What if I actually talked to that girl? What if I actually tried to start what I really wanted to do? And you just quiet it back, bury it back down, and allow yourself like, well, I have job security here. Oh, well, this worked out too. And again, maybe it's not for everybody, but if you have that vision, you only got one life to live. Why stifle it if it could be something? Wouldn't you rather have to have tried and failed than to never tried at all? So let's go into managing these three I's. It's insecurity, inspiration, and impatience. These are the three things that usually hinder us when it comes to taking that vision to strategy. Number one is insecurity. That voice that says you're not ready, you're not qualified, you're not capable, and it's this idea of silencing the hype. It is silence. We silence it. We silence this idea, this vision, with all these fantasy ideas of fear. And what I want to encourage you to do is to not silence this vision. Don't let those insecurities overshadow this vision. Don't silence this vision by your insecurities, but rather silence the insecurity with the passion for the vision. Silence the insecurity with more clarity. This idea of allowing yourself to feel the excitement, to where that excitement overshadows the insecurity instead. Allow yourself to map out the possibilities of what could actually work, so that clarity, that strategy is overshadowing the insecurity. The more that you break down the process, the more your confidence will grow. Now let's talk about number two, inspiration. Inspiration is great, but it also fades. You can't live on the initial wow moment. You got to translate that inspiration into intentional action, even if it is just writing it down. I don't know how many people that I've met over the years that had these big ideas where they talked about for years. And when I would even ask about it, it seemed like they were passionate. I would follow up hey, did you ever do that? No, I'm still thinking about it. Still, man, that would be so. And it's they haven't even written it down. They haven't even put it on paper. And I'm telling you, even if you were to just take the novelty of writing it in a journal, writing it down on pen and paper, it does something in you. Because now you're visualizing what is in your heart. And from there, you can start even going through these steps of writing what you would want. Even the church that we have today, that I feel like after I had the inspiration, I wrote down this simple idea of starting a church. And from there, I just wrote all these other things that came to my heart about it. Like what really moved me about the idea of starting this church. Why it mattered. What made me excited about it. And writing it down compelled this passion. It compelled me to continue to seek more inspiration, to seek more of this idea, this vision being laid out. So again, even if it is just writing down the idea, start there and then build on top of that. That strategy, starting with this writing down of allowing that strategy to translate inspiration into intentional action. And finally, impatience. Big vision often takes time. It's not something that we're not talking about things as like, I'm going to do this tomorrow. I'm going to do this next week. We're talking about things that may take months, may even take years. And if we don't have these implementations that we're talking about, the impatience will cloud out this big vision. And big visions take time. And so if you expect yourself to have all the answers today, you'll burn out before you even begin. You really have to allow yourself to slow down, to plan smart, and to trust this process. Because if you even just wildly just take this big idea and say, I'm going to just do it tomorrow. I'm going to have a conference and I'm going to do it next week. You're going to be disappointed because you're not taking the gravity of how big your idea is. You're not taking the gravity of how big this vision is, and your impatience will cloud out the potential results. Y'all feel what I'm saying? So again, we're not talking about just shutting out the vision because, that will take too long, but really recognizing that this is something powerful I am walking towards. I'm stepping towards this direction. We're not rejecting all the ideas of how realistic, how hard some things are, but we're understanding that I'm willing to take on this journey, and that's going to take time. And I'm applying patience with my inspiration and with my strategy. Y'all feel what I'm saying? Now let's go into this idea, this practical approach of working backwards from the goal. The question that we want to start with is, what is the end result that I desire from this big idea? Don't overcomplicate it. Just picture what the finished result is. What about this big idea would bring these results that would make you feel satisfied or content, would make you feel excited? What is it that really, like as another example for the church, I really felt this intense passion of creating a community, that like the idea of a community of transparent people as they were finding their purposes in God together, living transparent lives with one another. So, and it might sound simpler to you, but for me, I felt so inspired I really wanted to see this kind of church, this transparent, a place where no one is pretending to be somebody they're not, but this transparency where we're all finding our purposes together. We're not just going in there for sit down, shut up, listen to me, and then leave, but we're all experiencing the power of God and finding our purposes, how we each have individual purpose with one another. And for me, I really felt satisfied at the idea of finding those results. I really desired to see that happen. And today I feel an ongoing passion for being able to see this fulfilled. So again, my idea, my result wasn't like this big grander thing. It wasn't like I'm going to start a church and we're going to get a big building. No, that's not really what I desire. A big building is really boring without passionate people in it. I really had this simple idea that wasn't over encumbered with a lot of details, right? So I shared my idea. For you, whether it's a book, imagine it printed in someone's hands. Imagine, what will this book accomplish? If it's a business, picture it running with impact, with a sense of sustainability. What will people like about your business? If it's a program or a movement, a conference, imagine people thriving because of it. You're wanting to see, what will this do for me or for others? What will it do for me and for others? And as like a little side script for me, when it came to first writing a book, I actually was going to write a leadership book. And as I was going through several pages of hours and hours that I was writing, I just felt a little uneasy about what I was writing. Felt like I was missing the mark. And I had to stop and reposition myself. And I realized that I was writing this book more so to validate myself. I wanted to validate that I had like ideas, or that I was worth something, that I was a competent leader. And I realized that wasn't really the result that I wanted. I changed that, and I my first book was just a 90-day devotional. Again, something really simple, but my inspiration was being able to see what it would actually do to help people in their faith, and that encouraged me, that excited me. Same went for my marriage book. I saw this idea of marriages at the end being truly helped as seeing this book as a tool, and I built it from there. I could go on and on, but it's this idea of imagining the impact for others. What does that result really look like? Now ask yourself, what would need to be true for that to exist? And then you start working backwards. What would people need to see? What would people need to experience? What would people need to understand? What steps would have to be complete right now before that? What support or structure would have to be in place? And we're starting to create this reverse roadmap where we're trying to highlight these milestones or goals that we're setting up from end to start. And instead of being frozen by the bigness of the idea, you're now starting to create this general outline, this general trail for you to follow as you have reverse engineered the outcomes that give you clarity on what actually matters. So again, like I said, as a book perspective, I start with what I want this book to do, and then I start building out what themes would I need to talk about for that to happen. What specific themes, what specific chapter, and I start going back all the way to the beginning, and I'm working from the back to the front. And same goes for, like, even if you're just planning an event. An event for what? What do you want to happen? Okay, well, how would we, you want this to happen for the event? How would we get people there? Where would you host the event? And you're starting to, again, work backwards. And that's how you build, like, the initial skeleton. And after you build this skeleton, or these milestone events, again, we're talking about these broad milestones, then we go to step 2 in building forward through the details. Now that we've worked backward from the end goal, you can now turn around and start building forward. And you start to ask yourself, what are these details that I need to map out? What are these ideas, the little details, like how am I going to get the food? How am I going to get this? How am I going to get that? And you start working on these prototypes for this month, or these sketches, these tests. And you start thinking about who you actually need to talk to, and you're mapping out the details back to the end. And the idea here is not to obsess over one single step. You want to kind of like have this snowball effect where you're trying to knock off all the steps that come easy, and then you can go back and work on the steps that feel a little more complicated. Like, don't obsess over step 38. Just take step 1 the best that you can, and then take step 2 the best that you can. And you're trying to work with, yes, excellency, but also this consistency as you're just taking one step at a time, one detail at a time. And the beauty of this approach is that your momentum builds clarity. That's what we're really trying to do, is get a better and better clarity of these details, and you'll learn what works best for you as you move forward and as you course correct as needed. Okay, I want to just say it one more time. The point here of building this initial result, that's what you want, this circle, right? This initial goal, that's a little bit more clarity. Then we're just going to build the milestones, these big milestones of what would need to happen for that result to happen, for that result to be fulfilled. It's a little bit more clarity. Now we have more clarity, and then we go through the details, and we're just filling in more and more clarity, one section at a time. You know, I've been giving you a lot of personal examples of how I've had these real ideas that felt initially scary to me. Things that felt like these big ideas that I felt called to create but didn't feel ready for. And I could go down the list. One was even just being a public speaker to begin with, and then being a public speaker outside of churches. It was in broader platforms at recovery centers. You don't think I felt like a little intimidated by that? When it came to even writing my first book, writing the second book, and then it's like every little step had these pauses where I felt a little intimidated, a little overwhelmed, and thought I couldn't do that. And as I produced more clarity, I started realizing how I actually can do this. And it's these things that helps get me through those times. It is this idea of starting with the end in mind and imagining the final impact. That fuels my passion, my inspiration, and then reverse mapping these key milestones help builds clarity, and then building it forward one meeting, one draft, one recording at a time, and I'm building back forward in these small increments, and every small act of intention chipped away at this fear that instead of building this fear fantasy, I started building momentum. So here's some closing thoughts I want you to hear today. You're not crazy for dreaming big, and you're not silly, okay? You're not silly or foolish or naive for having a big dream. You're not unqualified. You're just in the early chapters. You're in the early stages, and the goal isn't perfection. It's simply progress. Okay, don't let the weight of the whole idea keep you from the next right step. Start with that big vision, reverse it, then walk it forward one decision at a time. With all that being said, I hope that you found this message meaningful for you today. I hope that it made a difference within your life and your leadership. Until next time, have a great life. Well, there you have it. I hope that this episode was meaningful and edifying for your leadership and your growth within your ministry and organization. Could you do me a favor? Could you leave a rating and review for this podcast? It'd really help me out and help others be able to see this show in their feed. You can also visit homerhargrove.com to be able to learn more, connect, or become one of our supporters. Until next time, have a great life.